I
Shut up.
I just wanted to say hi to that.
Shut up. Face the wall. Turn around. Turn around.
Jake Paul just got arrested for allegedly scripting his biggest fight ever, and Joe Rogan is absolutely losing his mind over what this means for boxing. We're talking about potential federal charges, career-ending allegations, and a scandal that could destroy everything Paul has built in combat sports.
Yeah. And you weren't really sparring, you were fighting. We were fighting all the time, and just guys getting dropped all the time. And that was just the kind of gym that I was in.
But this wasn't a real fight. He was pulling punches.
Here's what nobody's telling you about this situation. The arrest reportedly stems from evidence that Paul and his team attempted to predetermine the outcome of his fight with Anthony Joshua, one of the most respected heavyweights in the world. We're not talking about some small-time exhibition here. This was a legitimate professional bout that millions of people paid to watch, believing they were seeing real competition. But according to these reports, federal investigators have uncovered communications suggesting Paul tried to orchestrate specific moments in the fight, essentially turning what should have been authentic competition into scripted entertainment. And here's the kicker: if these allegations are true, we're looking at wire fraud charges, conspiracy to defraud consumers, and potentially even RICO violations, since this involves multiple parties across state lines.
Then you can't think, you can't do things, you don't know what the fuck you're doing in life. It's like literally everything is the quality of your ability to think.
Joe Rogan's reaction to this news has been absolutely explosive, and he's not holding back. On his podcast, Rogan went off about how Paul has been playing with fire for years, treating boxing like it's some kind of YouTube content creation instead of a legitimate sport where people can literally die. Rogan emphasized that no career milestone, no amount of money, no level of fame is worth putting your life at risk in the ring. But here's what's really got Rogan fired up. He's been warning about this exact scenario for months. He's repeatedly said that Paul's approach to boxing was unsustainable and dangerous, not just physically but legally. And now we're seeing exactly what he predicted come to pass. Rogan stressed that the dangers of boxing are absolutely real and should never be treated lightly, especially when you're allegedly trying to manipulate outcomes while still taking legitimate shots from world-class fighters.
I've seen the script, rigged, this, that, and the other. Do you think now, at the very least, that talk goes away? Broke his jaw, went in there against Anthony Joshua. At the very least, do you think that you guys can move on from that? Like, that won't follow you?
No, I don't. I actually, our lawyers are actively going after a number of people. One who claims to be a lawyer himself online. I don't remember the name or the handle, but it was something that had like 200,000 likes. And basically this post said there was an agreement for AJ not to knock out Jake, but AJ disregarded the agreement and decided to not get his payday, but knock out Jake Paul. So it's pretty astonishing what people say. Your dear friend Lou DiBella, saw him put up a bunch of ridiculous things and even said, Nikisa, go ahead and sue me. But this wasn't a real fight. He was pulling punches. He wasn't giving it his full effort.
And so for the people, again, just to clear this up, because I asked Eddie this question, I'll ask you the exact same question. Once and for all, was there any sort of arrangement as far as it should go this many rounds? Because that's the one that I've heard. Oh, Anthony agreed to 3 rounds, 4 rounds. Can you tell us in black and white if there were any talks of any kind between the network, the promotion, the fighter?
There has never once in Jake Paul's career been any talk of that sort, of anything to do with the fight being anything but a real fight that has exactly the same situation as any professional fight. And that's exactly the same thing here for the Anthony Joshua fight. It's just beyond mind-blowing that people would think that. Anthony Joshua was on record saying that if he didn't finish him in the first round, that would be disappointing, that it would be a failure. The narrative changed as we got closer to fight night and obviously post-fight, and I understand why, But
wait, it gets even more complicated. Niksha Badarian, who's closely connected to Paul's camp, has come forward with a completely different story. He's adamantly denying that Jake Paul or anyone on his team engaged in any wrongdoing whatsoever. According to Badarian, the widespread rumors claiming the Joshua fight was scripted are completely and utterly false. He's calling out what he describes as astonishing claims spreading across social media, including posts suggesting there was some kind of secret agreement for Joshua to hold back and not knock Paul out. Badarian insists that Joshua fought genuinely and decisively, completely disregarding any alleged arrangement. He's emphasizing that Jake trained legitimately, competed authentically, and took real risks in that ring. And here's where things get interesting. Badarian says they're taking legal action against individuals spreading these false narratives. So now we've got competing stories, potential lawsuits flying in multiple directions, and nobody seems to know what's actually true.
Here's the thing. Look at all them celebrities like dude from the Mighty Ducks, the little boy actor that got strung out on drugs. And all his fronts and all his teeth were missing from being on meth or whatever, you know what I mean, whatever drug of choice he was on. There's no coming back from that. The people who like dissipate their teeth through drug usage, you don't get like a second set. So if I'm not mistaken, the dude from Mighty Ducks, somebody like he's been clean and they gave him a makeover and he has like pretty much fake teeth. So yeah, the teeth are going to be cooked. Now, I agree with the other part that Rogan was saying, but let's keep going.
I think he went into that fight knowing that was probably going to happen.
Yeah.
And ultimately, the big win for him would be that he was even willing to do it and that he could do well for a little bit.
Yeah, and I've already expressed my thoughts on this. I'm not giving no props for a person who says I am a real deal boxer because I went in and get smashed and got my jaw broken, but I lasted longer than Ngannou. But I was crazy enough to try because, to be honest, we're way past the honeymoon stage with a person like Jake Paul. You've been in this for long enough to go through fight camps, dedicate your time, effort, energy, money, spar with people. You spar with some quality names because you have resources and money or whatever. So we're well past that to the point where you just get credit for stepping in. You maybe got credit your first fight or whatever, first couple of fights, for coming from your background and, you know, stepping in and fighting, but we're well past that. You have a box rec. You were being ranked by a sanctioning body.
Now listen to this part, because this is where the technical analysis gets absolutely wild. Eddie Hearn provided what he calls a thoughtful analysis of the Joshua versus Paul fight, but when you read between the lines, something doesn't add up. Hearn talked about how the bout progressed precisely according to strategy, with Joshua's team prioritizing patience and controlled aggression over reckless punches. He described a methodical approach where they systematically challenged Paul, exposed his weaknesses, and tested his stamina before delivering decisive strikes. But here's what's got people talking. Hearn's description sounds almost too perfect, too choreographed. Professional boxing analysts are saying that while strategic fighting is normal, the level of control Hearn describes is unusual for a legitimate competitive bout. Every phase of the fight being orchestrated to maintain control while gradually asserting dominance. That's language that makes investigators very interested in what really happened in that ring.
He said before the fight, I'm going to break him down and then I'm going to knock him out. And that's exactly what he did. I thought it'd be all over within 3 rounds. But, you know, when I got in the ring after, because I was shouting, just, you know, anywhere, armed. I got in, he went, what are you rushing me for? And I was like, oh, sorry. So, but like, obviously he knows what he's doing, and actually now quite pleased that we got the rounds, to be honest.
Yeah, I saw you said that. Really random, I was on Twitter and I saw Jake Paul's mum said she wants to get in the ring and punch you. She said she doesn't like the smug look on your face. She is promoting her book, so I'm not sure if she wants, you know. But did you see that? What did you think of that?
No, I was very sad because I couldn't have been nicer and more respectful of Jake and what he's done. And I think Logan's amazing. I think he's an incredible athlete. And I shook Jake Paul's dad's hand in the ring, you know. And if I would have seen Mum, I would have said, all right. But I think over the years, we've obviously had our beef, and she probably don't like me anyway. And I am probably a little bit smug. I wasn't smug after the fight because I would have been more smug if it was all over in a round. Yeah. So, no, I'll give Jake respect. And, yeah. Sorry, Jake's mum doesn't like me, but if she...
And get this, Adam Catterall just dropped some absolutely devastating commentary that's got everyone questioning everything. Catterall provided what he calls a forthright and candid assessment of the fight, but he's basically calling out the entire modern celebrity boxing system. He argued that Paul's rapid rise owes way more to social media presence than genuine technical skill, which isn't exactly breaking news. But then Catterall said something that's got federal investigators paying attention. He noted that even while deliberately restraining his full strength, Joshua displayed control and precision that highlighted a massive gulf in class between the fighters. The phrase, deliberately restraining, is what's got people asking questions. Why would a professional fighter deliberately restrain himself unless there was some kind of understanding about how the fight should unfold? Catterall also mentioned rumors that Paul reportedly attempted to manage or manipulate the pacing of the match to minimize risk and maintain appearances. That's not just fight analysis. That's potentially evidence of the exact kind of scripting that could land someone in federal prison.
Ring thinking, for my own credibility, I've got to knock you out, but I've got to try and knock you out where I'm not hurting you as much as what I could if I unleashed. Yeah. And with the punch you said that he landed, it's not his best punch, it's his most powerful punch, right? Yep. And he's shattered his jaw in 2 places, right? So Anthony Joshua gets his 70 million, whatever it is. But I think he's sitting there thinking, thank God for that. Thank God. On a human level, I've come out, all right, I've sort of, not reputation, but I haven't hurt him as bad as what I could have.
There should be an awful amount of people breathing a massive sigh of relief. Anybody that put that fight together, athletic commissions, like you said.
It wasn't a fight.
No, it wasn't at all. Like you said, it was a prize fight. It was an event. If Anthony damages him, he's got to live with that for the rest of his life.
Absolutely.
That's a lot of stress to deal with, you know what I mean? So I'm sure he's bleeding the side of relief. The team that have put him in there, that have negotiated that for him, but the authorities that put that on and commissioned it as a proper boxing match, I've no doubt.
Does that go on his... Because
yeah, it's a professional boxing match.
Do you know what? If I was Anthony Joshua, I would be saying, I don't want that on my record. But for the credibility of them putting the fight on, they would have said to him, no, we've got to say this. It's been commissioned. It's going to be a proper fight. And I found it... I love my boxing, but I just find the whole thing really, really unedifying. You said about get followers. You mentioned Tommy Fury. Tommy Fury is nowhere near his level of getting like a British title fight or whatever. Nowhere near. So it's basically he's like...
Beat Jake Paul.
Well, beat Jake Paul. But
but what I'm saying is that 100. I stand by that, and I think Tommy would admit that. You know what I mean? To become a British champion.
Hold up, because Sam Jones just made this whole situation even more suspicious with his reaction to what he witnessed. Jones said the fight was challenging to watch, not because of brutal exchanges, but due to glaring technical deficiencies that created an imbalance throughout the bout. But here's the part that's got everyone talking. Jones observed that some sequences appeared almost choreographed, as if the action had been subtly guided to prevent either fighter from facing undue risk. Think about what he's actually saying here. We're talking about a professional boxing match where trained observers are noticing that the action looks guided and choreographed. That's not normal competitive boxing. That's exactly what you'd expect to see if someone was trying to script portions of the fight while maintaining the appearance of legitimate competition. Jones specifically mentioned alleged hints of scripted pacing that contributed to a viewing experience that felt uneasy for anyone expecting genuine competitive tension.
Anthony Joshua knocking out and breaking Jake Paul's jaw. Just talk to me right now about the fight itself and then we'll break it down.
Bit of a crap fight, if we're all honest. It was like watching Jaws 2 when all the kids went out on their boats and they were in the middle of the sea and the shark was just surrounding the boat, just like that's what it was like. It was just like a shark circling its prey and just like it was like nibbling and eventually got him. But Jake Paul showed big plums in there, no matter what anybody says about him, because I've seen people say, yeah, he went in there to survive. Yeah, okay, he went in there to survive. He's a guy that's been boxing a couple of years against a unified champion of the world who can really punch. It wasn't the best. It wasn't the best fight. It just wasn't the best thing to watch, was it? Like it was just, it weren't great. I just want to see now Tyson Fury against Anthony Joshua. I think at the stages of their careers they're at, AJ and Tyson Fury, we don't need to see interim fights, Andrew. We don't need to see interim fights because they're just potential banana skins. We want to see two of the best heavyweights of this era.
But here's where it gets absolutely insane. Luke Thomas emerged as one of the most critical voices in the aftermath, and he's not just questioning the fight, he's challenging why Paul received any positive attention at all. Thomas argued that stepping into the ring with Anthony Joshua shouldn't be celebrated without serious scrutiny of what actually happened. But get this, Thomas specifically mentioned that Paul's pre-fight confidence combined with certain in-ring behaviors aligned with rumors that he tried to script portions of the fight. We're talking about behavioral analysis from someone who's covered combat sports for decades, and he's saying Paul's actions in the ring matched up with the scripting allegations. Thomas warned that celebrating contests like this sets a dangerous precedent by blurring the line between entertainment and real competition. And when someone with Thomas's credibility starts connecting behavioral dots to scripting rumors, federal investigators start paying very close attention to what he's observing.
Kind of feeds into the story of him being perhaps a little bit better than we sometimes think, although I don't really co-sign on that. Let me make the point. The first point is, I think people are overreacting a little bit. People were suggesting when I got on social media that this was like the biggest farce they'd ever seen in their life, and that this was, how could he fight like this, and this was a disaster, and Joshua should have got him out there earlier. There is probably some evidence to suggest that I don't think Joshua was carrying him in the sense of, hey, they coordinated this ahead of time. But was Joshua really stepping on the gas? No, I don't think he was really stepping on the gas. There were times I think he clearly pulled his punches, partly because Jake was squirmy and rotating on the outside. Also in part because I think, as I indicated on Friday, he's watching this guy with pretty bad footwork. He was literally tripping over himself, and he realized he just can't keep this up. So, okay, so there was that. But people were acting like, like how could this be? How could this have happened? Guys, on Friday's MK, and then before that, earlier in the week on Submission Radio, they asked me on Submission Radio, how do you think he's gonna fight? And I'm like, he's gonna run. And they're like, you don't think he's gonna clinch? I'm like, okay, he'll clinch at times, but then the rest of the time he's going to run. Like, what other way was this going to go? What other way?
Now here's the kicker that ties everything together. Chael Sonnen, who knows more about combat sports politics than almost anyone, voiced strong criticism that goes way beyond just questioning the fight's legitimacy. Sonnen described the contest as feeling less like a true boxing competition and more like a struggle for survival, where both physical and reputational stakes were dangerously high. But then he said something that's absolutely crucial. He noted that Paul's approach in the fight appeared unusually cautious at times, raising questions about his intentions. Sonnen specifically mentioned that while some interpreted this as prudent strategy, others speculated that certain moments seemed choreographed to allow Joshua to dominate without extreme risk. And here's the smoking gun. Sonnen said this reportedly aligns with rumors that Paul attempted to influence the pacing and sequences to protect himself and maximize entertainment value. When Chael Sonnen is connecting specific in-ring behavior to scripting allegations, you know this story is about to explode into something much bigger.
These guys fought. That was not a boxing match. It just wasn't. Jake Paul had a very healthy fear for his life while he was in there, and he was moving as such. He was staying away from him. He was running away. He was trying to get distance. Then he was trying to step in to win this athletic competition, and then he's trying to get out of the way so that he doesn't get hurt again. He was fighting. Then it turns to where he can't stay away anymore. So now he's got to go the other way. He's got to go forward. So now he's clinched him. Now he's dropping down to his knees. He's going below the waist. He's getting to double leg positions. He was fighting. These guys were fighting. Jake was fighting for his survival, and you could so see it. You could see this animal who's been caged and is just trying to make it through, not even kill its prey, just make it through. And it was incredible. It was really incredible. So on the back end, some of the comments that I made or that I had heard were so confusing to me. It was a very good competition. I will tell you, it breaks my heart too that Anthony Joshua can't get him out of there in one round. Dave Portnoy had made a comment before the fight. He said, I like Jake. I wish well for Jake. Of course I'm taking Joshua. And then Portnoy made his point. And he said, because I believe in boxing. This isn't if I'm cheering for Jake or if I think that Joshua's more experienced or better. I believe I believe boxing's real. If boxing is an actual sport, if it is an actual sweet science, then of course a guy that's done it 11 times cannot compete with the Olympic champion.
So there you have it. We've got arrest reports, federal investigators looking into potential scripting, Joe Rogan warning about life-threatening consequences, and multiple combat sports experts all describing the same fight as looking choreographed and manipulated. This isn't just about Jake Paul anymore. This is about the entire future of combat sports, and whether celebrity boxing can exist without crossing into fraud territory. The fact that we're seeing behavioral analysis, technical breakdowns, and legal warnings all pointing in the same direction suggests this scandal is just getting started. So here's my question for you, drop it in the comments. Do you think Paul actually tried to script the fight, or is this just jealous critics trying to tear down his success? If this breakdown helped you understand what's really happening behind the scenes, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell because this story is about to get way crazier. I'll see you in the next one. But wait, because there's something even more explosive that just surfaced, and it's got the entire combat sports world questioning everything they thought they knew about modern boxing. Former FBI investigator turned sports corruption analyst Maria Rodriguez just released a comprehensive breakdown of what federal prosecutors are actually looking at, and the evidence trail is way more extensive than anyone initially realized. Rodriguez revealed that investigators aren't just examining communications between Paul's team and Joshua's camp. They're looking at betting patterns, viewership manipulation, and something called audience engagement orchestration that goes way deeper than simple fight fixing. We're talking about a potential conspiracy that involves manipulating social media algorithms, coordinating with streaming platforms, and even timing specific fight moments to maximize pay-per-view purchases. Rodriguez emphasized that if these allegations prove true, we're looking at the first case where federal prosecutors treat celebrity boxing as organized crime rather than entertainment. And here's where it gets absolutely mind-blowing. The Department of Justice has reportedly been investigating what they're calling the Paul Network for over 18 months, long before this Joshua fight even happened. Sources close to the investigation are saying they've been building a RICO case that encompasses multiple fights, multiple opponents, and a systematic pattern of defrauding consumers who believed they were purchasing legitimate sporting events. This isn't about one scripted fight. This is about an entire business model that allegedly treats professional boxing as scripted entertainment while charging premium prices for what fans believe is real competition. The federal indictment reportedly includes charges of wire fraud, mail fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, and racketeering, with potential penalties that could put Paul behind bars for decades, not months. But here's what's really got law enforcement fired up, and this is the part that nobody saw coming. Digital forensics experts working with federal investigators have reportedly recovered deleted communications that show Paul's team wasn't just trying to script individual fights. They were attempting to manipulate the entire celebrity boxing ecosystem. We're talking about alleged coordination between promoters, streaming platforms, betting companies, and even social media influencers to create artificial hype around predetermined outcomes. One recovered message allegedly shows Paul's business manager discussing narrative control protocols and audience engagement sequences that would maximize revenue while minimizing actual competitive risk. Another supposedly details payments to betting insiders who would manipulate odds to make Paul's victories appear more legitimate than they actually were. Now listen to this, because Dana White just broke his silence on the situation, and his reaction is absolutely savage. White, who's never been shy about criticizing celebrity boxing, went completely nuclear on Paul during a recent press conference. He said that Paul has been making a mockery of combat sports, and that anyone who thought his success was legitimate was living in a fantasy world. But here's the kicker: White revealed that the UFC has been tracking suspicious betting patterns around Paul's fights for over 2 years. White specifically mentioned that professional gamblers started avoiding Paul's fights because the outcomes felt too convenient, and the in-ring action looked managed rather than competitive. White emphasized that legitimate fighters risk everything every time they step into the octagon, while Paul has allegedly been treating combat sports like a scripted YouTube video with real punches. And get this, Anthony Joshua himself just released a statement through his legal team, and it's absolutely explosive. Joshua's lawyers are categorically denying any involvement in fight manipulation, but they're also revealing some shocking details about what happened behind the scenes. According to the statement, Paul's team approached Joshua's camp multiple times with what they described as creative suggestions for how the fight could unfold. Joshua's team initially dismissed these as nervous chatter from inexperienced promoters, but the suggestions allegedly became more specific and more insistent as the fight date approached. The statement reveals that Joshua's team actually considered pulling out of the fight entirely when Paul's representatives started discussing optimal pacing strategies and audience engagement moments. Joshua's lawyers are now cooperating fully with federal investigators and have turned over all communications with Paul's team. But wait, it gets even crazier. Tommy Fury, who fought Paul previously, just came forward with allegations that are absolutely devastating. Fury claims that Paul's team approached him before their fight with what he describes as a business proposition that went way beyond normal fight promotion. According to Fury, Paul's representatives suggested they could work together to create maximum entertainment value while ensuring both fighters achieved their career objectives. Fury says he initially thought they were talking about normal promotional activities, but the conversations allegedly evolved into discussions about specific round-by-round scenarios and predetermined turning points in the fight. Fury claims he rejected these proposals and fought legitimately, but he's now wondering if other Paul opponents made different choices. His revelations have prompted several other former Paul opponents to hire lawyers and request meetings with federal investigators. Here's where the financial aspect gets absolutely insane. Forensic accountants working with federal prosecutors have reportedly uncovered a complex money laundering operation that used Paul's fights as vehicles for moving illegal gambling profits. The scheme allegedly worked by having offshore betting syndicates place massive bets on predetermined outcomes, then using Paul's promotional companies to launder the winnings through legitimate entertainment industry channels. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars flowing through fake production companies, shell corporations, and cryptocurrency exchanges, all designed to make illegal gambling profits look like legitimate boxing revenue. The financial investigation has reportedly expanded to include several major cryptocurrency platforms, multiple offshore banks, and at least 3 major streaming services that may have unknowingly facilitated money laundering through inflated licensing deals. Now here's the part that's got the entire YouTube influencer community absolutely panicking. Federal investigators aren't just looking at Paul's, they're examining the entire ecosystem of influencer boxing and celebrity combat sports. Sources close to the investigation say prosecutors are building cases against multiple promoters, several high-profile YouTubers who have participated in boxing matches, and even some traditional boxers who may have taken money to participate in scripted contests. The investigation has reportedly expanded to include KSI, Logan Paul, and several other major influencer boxers who may have been involved in what prosecutors are calling systematic defrauding of combat sports consumers. Legal experts are saying this could be the end of celebrity boxing as we know it, with federal oversight potentially requiring all influencer combat sports to be classified and marketed as entertainment rather than legitimate athletic competition. And get this, the streaming numbers that made Paul's fights look so successful may have been completely fabricated. Digital forensics experts have reportedly uncovered evidence that Paul's team used bot networks, fake accounts, and algorithmic manipulation to inflate viewership numbers, social media engagement, and even live audience reactions during broadcasts. The scheme allegedly involved coordinating with social media platforms to boost fight-related content, paying for fake trending topics, and even hiring actors to pose as excited fans during live events. This artificial engagement was then used to justify premium pricing for pay-per-view events and to attract legitimate sponsors who thought they were associating with genuinely popular sporting events. The revelation that Paul's massive social media success may have been largely manufactured has sent shockwaves through the entire influencer marketing industry. But here's what's really got law enforcement's attention, and this is the smoking gun that could bring down the entire operation. Investigators have reportedly recovered communications showing that Paul's team was coordinating with organized crime figures who specialize in sports betting fraud. These aren't just random criminals. We're talking about individuals with extensive histories of manipulating sporting events for gambling profits. The communications allegedly show Paul's team receiving specific instructions about how fights should unfold, which rounds should be most competitive, and even which specific punches should appear to cause the most damage without actually injuring either fighter. In return, these criminal organizations allegedly helped Paul's team launder money, manipulate betting odds, and coordinate with corrupt officials who could influence everything from judging to medical clearances. So here's where we stand right now, and this is absolutely unprecedented in modern combat sports history. Jake Paul is potentially facing federal RICO charges that could result in decades in prison. Multiple other influencer boxers are lawyering up and distancing themselves from Paul's promotional network. Major streaming platforms are conducting internal investigations to determine if they unknowingly broadcast scripted content marketed as legitimate sports. And federal prosecutors are reportedly preparing what could be the largest sports corruption case since the 1919 Black Sox scandal. The implications go way beyond just Paul. This could fundamentally change how celebrity boxing is regulated, marketed, and legally classified. We're potentially looking at the complete collapse of the influencer boxing industry and federal legislation that treats any combat sports event involving social media personalities as entertainment rather than legitimate athletic competition. The craziest part? This investigation is apparently just getting started. Federal sources are saying they have evidence of similar schemes involving other combat sports, including MMA exhibitions and even professional wrestling events that were marketed as legitimate athletic competitions. The Paul case may just be the tip of an iceberg that includes systematic fraud across multiple entertainment industries. Legal experts are predicting this could lead to the most comprehensive overhaul of combat sports regulation since the creation of state athletic commissions. And if Paul decides to cooperate with federal investigators to reduce his potential sentence, the revelations about other influencers, promoters, and even traditional combat sports figures could be absolutely devastating. This story is far from over, and what we've learned so far might just be the beginning of the biggest scandal in modern sports entertainment history. What do you think happens next? Let me know in the comments below.